Welcome to this mini podcast series entitled Glimpses of a Possible Future, brought to you by Makespace Oxford. As part of our 5th anniversary celebrations, we connected with a handful of local projects that inspire us. Great examples of people-powered placemaking. We hope you enjoy the conversations. Now here's Glimpses of a Possible Future.
Okay, so we're back in the Dome for the final conversation of the day as part of Aristotle Lane and Makespace's 5th birthday, and I'm really delighted to be joined by 2 members of Transition by Design Cooperative, who are one of the founding partners of Makespace. In fact, Makespace was very much incubated within Transition by Design before it then journeyed out on its own as an independent organisation. And we have Alex Towler, one of the co-founders and director, and Sammy-Jo, architectural designer and member. So thank you both very much for joining us. And I just want to invite you to say a little bit about who Transition by Design are and what you do, and in particular your personal relationship to it, how you came to be at Transition by Design.
Great.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, and lovely to be here as well. As Annie said, it's wonderful to see this project that we've been part of for 5 years plus, sort of through the incubation period as well. So also it's a really valuable space for us because as part of the principles, it's very hard for progressive organisations who are value-driven rather than profit-driven or surplus-driven to find an affordable workspace, particularly one where you've got enough space to really be creative. We're architects first and foremost. We're chartered practice, but we very much stretch the limits of what might be considered to be architecture. So we've got a strong environmental and social focus, so whether that's retrofit, passive house, ecological, natural building materials, or from a social side, looking community-led housing, affordable housing, and then also what's really interesting is our action research projects, which again often around the themes of housing and homelessness in the city and beyond.
For me, I've been with Transition by Design about a year, coming from an architecture background, and actually I'd heard about Transition by Design for a few years before I've come to work here, and I guess it's a thing of the boundary between architecture and social change, and that being flexible between the two, I think for me it's what I've been working on most is lots of energy retrofits, so really reducing the carbon that buildings have and that buildings use to help with people's comfort and well-being, but also for the environment, and then also a mixture of sort of participatory urban design, so community engagement, so that including people in the decisions made for where they're going to live. I think that's really important as well.
Saying, as well as that being a principle and a design about the participative aspects, it's worth saying that we're also a cooperative, which is fairly unusual as architecture practice. I'm pleased to say it's becoming less unusual, but still not many. So both the community interest company and the cooperative, so that means that both Sammy and I are both members, and so we have it alongside cooperative principles.
What does that mean about how you work and how you take decisions day to day?
I see. Sammy, as a new member, how's that been? Or relatively new member over a year, but how you find the decision making, particularly in context of other kind of much more hierarchical organisations.
So from my experience, this is the first time I've worked at an organisation which is non-hierarchical and challenges that. And architecture is usually very hierarchical. You have sort of a chain of people who make the decisions, and that filters down to you. If you've just come out of university and you're a new graduate. But here at Transition by Design, the decision-making process is so that I think it's the thing of bringing proposals. So someone has an idea or has a thought about what the business should do, or some key decisions for the cooperative, and then the idea of bringing that to everyone and everyone having a discussion. You have questions, you have questions rounds. Everyone gets an opportunity to speak and have their voice heard and have their opinion heard, and then the decision is made collectively. And I think that's really empowering, and it means that, how can I describe it? Like everyone is making the decisions for everyone. Everyone's making decisions for the whole cooperative.
For the good of the co-op and the direction that you're trying to take.
That's really powerful. And I think it's really, the hierarchy can be seen as, the best way to do things. But actually, I think with a cooperative, it's much more productive, and it's a much more enjoyable workplace.
You have that buy-in, don't you?
You have the buy-in. Yeah.
No, I think that's really well said, and I think what's often been said about transition by design is they walk the talk. So you advocate for participatory design, you advocate for democratic decision making in the design process when buildings and places are being transformed, and you do that within your organisation, and I think that's what is really powerful for me. Do you want to say a little bit about where you are now and the kind of projects you're working on, and some of the kind of hard-won lessons, just a few, because I know you've got a few battle scars. We'll have to do a deeper dive at some point. So this is just a taster of, just give us the headlines of what's going on at the moment.
Well, we were founded in 2011, 2012, so it's, we've got some mileage on us. I'll start, I'll talk about some of the projects we're working on. Let Sammy talk about some of the projects she's working on. An example of how now we're working on sort of strategic level of retrofit, which Sammy was talking about before. So before that, be working with able to pay, so someone who's able to has enough money to be able to pay for a retrofit. But then in terms of the just transition, actually, it's really important to make sure that everyone, particularly in the cost of living crisis, that people who can at least afford their fuel bills are in fact most in need, and then the knock-on issues of health as well. So we're working, for example, with Platform Housing Group, Islington Borough Council, previously working with Cambridge City Council, to look at actually scaling up not one house, but looking at citywide or whole housing stock level, and working how to strategically retrofit en masse. And again, that means looking at particularly around the kind of social housing, or how that can be done in a much more equitable way. Of course, we're still doing architecture, still doing community-led housing, Tame Community Land Trust, 31 permanently affordable homes in Tame, that's got planning, that's starting to move forward. But also around the sort of South Oxfordshire and Vale of the White Horse, we're working with partners bi-regional, working on a new local plan to make that zero carbon for 2041. Which is wonderful. Architects, we're usually on the receiving end of planning policy, so it's wonderful to work strategically towards how would you technically create a zero carbon buildings, which we so desperately need.
That's very exciting. And Sammy-Jo, I know you're involved in a few projects closer to home here at Aristotle Lane. So tell us a bit about what's going on the city fringes.
Yeah. So one of the big projects I'm working on is Find the Gap. And so that builds on some work from a previous project at Transition by Design, which is an action research project. And it's the idea that, what we're working on is the idea is that there's lots of small sites around the city which are unused and underused, or, for example, garage sites, and all the garages are empty and not used. And the idea of taking those small sites, which can be really difficult to build on, and then working on a strategy and really clever design to be able to get affordable housing on those small sites, which would otherwise be disused. No, that's okay. So that's just.
And how are you doing that? Tell us about some of the partners involved and the mechanic. How do you unlock empty and underused sites for affordable housing?
Yeah, so we're working with Aspire Oxfordshire, and they are a homelessness charity, and they've done how they're supporting this is because these homes that we're building the idea is it will be for move-on accommodation for people who have experienced homelessness and rough sleeping. So it being sort of an in-between of the short-term accommodation, which is just let's find you a home for now, and then on to more long-term accommodation, where it's a thing of being a secure place, and the in-between, which is sort of still being supported by Aspire Oxfordshire, by that charity, to be able to help people move on easily to going on to be permanently housed. And I think one of the things with this is really making sure that the sites you have to have a really good understanding of the site. So one which we looked at from previously, Champion Way, which we weren't able to build on, and it's to do with a Thames water pipe going right through the site, and so
sometimes there are really good reasons why
yeah,
you don't build on some
really
sites.
Good reasons why,
and you need to do that research.
Yeah, and also the idea of modular construction. So building in a slightly modular and panelized construction. So building in a slightly different way, so things can be built quicker. Because with these small sites, you don't have much space around to be able to build in a traditional way where you have to store loads of materials. So that sort of element as well, helping the sites be able to be viable and built on and become homes for people.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, that modern methods of construction, I've heard it called, where you're unlocking sites by bringing new ways of constructing in more efficient ways off-site is very exciting.
I don't know if I have time. It's maybe worth mentioning Blackbird Leys Community Centre, where we're not working as the architects on that project, and we're coming at this sort of relatively late stage for it. But that we're working there on the community engagement side, and what we're currently, or Sammy-Jo and my colleague Wangani, are currently just setting up is for a community design review panel. So that kind of steps into our participative or kind of community participatory approach towards urbanism. And what's critical here is we see that people, who live in a space have got so much knowledge and experience and understanding and impact, but so often they're consulted late or they're offered A or B. So the idea of a community design review panel is that the design team, rather than having to show their design to built environment professionals, they show it to a panel of the local community who are selected to be representative, don't already have a platform, and that's a way that they can really test the design team and ask questions about the design, and the design team then has to then answer them, and it's all on record. The reports will then go out, so it's got to explain why they're designing in such a way. So, these are set up in different places. The first we know of in Oxford, and if we can hopefully have a success from this one, we can use this as a methodology.
It's very exciting. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one to watch to see how it develops, because I know that as is always the way in communities, there are many voices that need to be heard, and it can be a challenge to balance different demands from developer and local communities. Well, listen, thank you both so much. If we could just finish off, we're kind of the framing of these mini conversations is around glimpses of a possible future. So what of the projects that we've touched on, or the tools and tactics that you use, would you want to offer up as a glimpse of the possible future, something that we want to take forward to help develop our towns and our cities in a way that fosters community connection and builds for health, well-being, and protects our more than human kin and the wider ecology? There are many, so feel free to just pick the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think for me it's what's really important is a very people-centered approach, and the combination between the thinking about the environment, climate change is real, and making sure that what you do is good for the environment, but also good for the people who are going to use it. So focusing those two things in any project, I think, is really important. Although I know that's a very big and complex thing to do, but I think that's something which is really key for me.
Brilliant. So that about the participatory urbanism, that when we're talking about things which seem to be outliers, that becomes the norm. That rather than, because a lot of these glimpses we're showing is how it can be done. We show on a small scale, this is how you can make a zero carbon retrofit. Okay, that's a glimpse of why isn't this being rolled out at city, neighbourhood level, and why aren't we putting communities and an idea of social justice is part of that rollout as well.
Very well said. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see how things evolve at the different scales you're operating, from the hyper-local to the more strategic and national. So thanks for joining us and being such an integral part of Makespace's last 5 years. I'm excited about the next chapter.
Thank you for listening to this mini podcast series entitled Glimpses of a Possible Future. We'd love to hear what you thought, and so do get in touch with us via socials, or share it with a friend. And if you'd like to hear more news and events from Makespace Oxford and our wider community, then get in touch via our website and sign up to our newsletter at makespaceoxford.org.